I don't live in the 1990s anymore. This is modern day times. And if I want to binge something, that's my prerogative.
You want to wait till it's already ready and then you watch them. Yeah.
This whole business of like we're going to release one show a week. No, no, sir.
You're listening to a local church podcast hosted by my dad, Pastor Ryan Markham. Be sure to leave a review and share this resource. Love God, love people, make disciples.
And we're back. Hey,
you got me all fired up there, Ryan.
It was
kind of a little excited.
Hey,
a little aggressive sounding.
So the podcast, right?
Here we are.
I haven't done anything.
Releasing one show a week
every Wednesday. Like you don't like.
Right? No.
But I mean, I guess the listener, if you're listening to this, you could go back and watch.
True.
Or listen to.
And that's exactly the point I was making.
Yeah.
Like now that show has been all released, I can go back and watch it at my leisure.
I like it.
Yeah. And so someone, down the road who's listening to this.
Yeah. If you're in Germany, 5% of the listeners are in Germany.
Hello. Oh, Brecken Sie Deutsch.
Yeah. But you can go back and listen to all 75 episodes prior to this one.
You got tons to binge.
Catch up.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here we go.
So new format.
It is a new format.
So this is kind of there's a lot of changes going on, right? Noah was the
interim youth
sidekick,
pastor,
right? The sidekick podcast maker, right?
Yes.
Even the intro's different,
right?
We
didn't even talk about that. It just happened.
Yeah. So
how very cool is it for little Emma?
It's awesome. I'm excited for her to be a part of this venture.
Yeah.
And so new format, new people, new sidekick, new side host, co-host.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. I mean, yeah, hey, I've been on here a couple times.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm Ryan Allan. I guess if we need to state that. Has it already been said? Did the big voice say it already?
No, Ryan Allan is here at our local church. We'll start there.
Okay.
Deacon, worship leader, life group leader. You just helped hand out. You were servant. Right? You do a lot of stuff here.
Yeah.
Been
a member here 20 years.
20 years?
Yep.
You've got a membership card by now, don't you? You've got
I would think that probably earns me something.
And civilian side sounds military, but civilian side.
I am an assistant principal at an elementary school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brecken Sie Deutsch. So, and those.
I didn't even talk. Speaking of that, I'm going to. Oh, no, finish your thought.
Those. I think both of those experiences, all the stuff that you bring to the table is going to be really good for podcasts, for conversation, things like that.
Yeah, you said Brecken Sie Deutsch. I know zero German. I can count to 10 in German.
Nice.
But I didn't think I've told you this. And I'm 21 days strong.
Of German?
Of Duolingo.
Oh, yeah.
Spanish.
Yeah. I don't even want to open mine up. I'm going to open it up just to see. I don't think I've opened mine up in like several weeks.
Your Duolingo?
Yeah.
They give you a little flame for each day that you do.
Yeah, and I know it's cool.
I am crushing 3 weeks in a row. I haven't missed a day.
I'm gonna. Does it make a sound? I don't know if it makes a sound.
I don't know. Yeah, it makes a sound. It makes all kinds of sounds. So there's the little bird with the eyes. Yes.
Yeah, he's winking at me like, "Hey, you haven't been here in a while." It says, "Good to see you again. Haven't seen you for a while. Let's get back into learning Spanish."
There you go. I am doing it because our school system locally has a large number of what are known as EL students. Yeah. So that's English language students whose primary language is not English, and so they are having to learn to speak a language that's not native to them, and then two, learn school, and so it's doubly hard for them. And so I'm trying to connect with those kiddos and those families, and it's going to take me a while. Through 3 weeks of Duolingo, Ryan, I'm like, yo quieres, some pretty simple.
Yo kilo Taco Bell.
A lot of that. Yeah, it's very, very simple. I took Spanish in high school, and you had to conjugate verbs. And,
you did like grammar stuff.
Right, none of that.
It's formal Spanish.
Right, it's supposed to be, I guess, embedded kind of in language, and I don't know. I'm still pretty fired up.
You need to go like on a semester abroad, and get like.
I wonder if the church would sponsor me to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe my school would sponsor me. You think elementary school would sponsor me?
I think if the superintendent's listening, I think if anyone's listening that can pull strings, I think I would say one admin in each school and a few teachers in each school should immerse themselves into a language that they reach in their community. I think that's really important.
Listen.
Yeah.
We're just going to start a movement right now.
I think that should
just happened.
I think that should be. So there's changes in the podcast. We're still going to push one out once a week, right? We try Wednesday. It's going to be kind of difficult. Maybe on Sunday we release one. I don't know. Right. Okay. So it'll be once a week, like per usual. But just the formatting will be a little bit different. We're still going to be a local church podcast for now. That may change in the future. But we really want to hit what the Bible says to the local church. Why does it matter? How does it affect the things going on in the world? How does it affect us here at a local church setting? And then we're just going to talk about the things of the day, right? History, the news, whatever's going on, holidays, all that good stuff.
If someone went back and listened to all 75 episodes prior to this one, there have been several format changes along the way.
Yeah. So at first it started out as Pastor Ryan podcast, and then I thought that was like too egocentric. It was too like, hey, is it sounding big-headed for me to have my own podcast with my own name? Right, that kind of thing.
You are pretty awesome, though.
But so I changed it to a local church podcast. Like, it's for the church, right? So if you have questions about faith, the church, theology, just anything in general, send it in. A local church podcast at gmail.com.
Yes.
All one word.
I have emailed
yes,
to that
you have.
address.
So let's get into it. Today, we're going to pick up in Malachi. We've talked about Malachi the last few podcasts. We're going to pick it up. I want to talk about the passage that we did this morning in our worship service, Malachi chapter 2, 10 through 16. I want to set you up a little bit if you're just now joining us. Malachi is a prophet of God. It's a minor prophet, so it's more focused on a specific people, about specific issues, specific time period, that kind of thing. And the people of God have been returned to the promised land. They're no longer in exile in Babylon. Temple has been rebuilt. Wall has been rebuilt. But they're not experiencing the prosperity that they once had, when the nations were beneath them in a sense. And so they're beginning to be like really haphazard in their worship, in their covenant with God. And God is reminding them who he is and who they are and how this all fits. And he wants to restore them and renew them into a right relationship with him. In the chapters to come, he's even going to mention, like, there is one coming, the one you're waiting for, right? To right all the wrongs. He's coming. He's just around the corner. And so renewal, restoration, that's kind of the goal of this. Just before we get into it, Ryan, everybody at times needs to be brought back onto the right path. We all head down dumb roads and we make silly decisions all the time in our life. Right. We need someone in our life that can kind of just walk with us and bring us back, right?
Yeah, I mean, last week when we talked about it, upstairs, there was the comparison of, a loving parent who the child wants to put their hand on the stove, and you're like, no, that's not good for you, versus, this whole argument of, a loving parent always loves, and yes, a loving parent always loves, but there has to be discipline involved in that, to demonstrate the love. Otherwise, it's just poor parenting, right?
It's anarchy.
Yeah, it's just crazy town. Everybody gets a trophy.
Yes, I used a couple of passages in the intro to kind of piggyback off that. Job chapter 5. We all know Job's story. Mm-hmm. Satan goes to God and says, I bet Job will turn from you. And God says, yeah, go for it, but you just don't touch him, right? That's at the beginning. Yeah. And then towards the end, he's got like boils. He's sitting in it's miserable, right? And this is what Job says about God and discipline in particular. Job chapter 5, 17 and 18. Behold, blessed is the one whom God reproves or disciplines or corrects. Therefore, despise not the discipline of the Almighty, for he wounds, but he binds up. He shatters, but his hands heal. Right? There is the one that God loves, he disciplines. Woe to the one who doesn't feel God's discipline in life and just is allowed to just keep going down the dark road. I mean, just
atrophied.
Yeah, it's our passage.
Yes.
Malachi chapter 2, starting in verse 10 through 16. Have we not all one Father? Has not one God created us? Why then are we faithless to one another, profaning the covenant of our fathers? Judah has been faithless, and abomination has been committed in Israel and in Jerusalem. For Judah has profaned the sanctuary of the Lord, which he loves, and has married the daughter of a foreign god. May the Lord cut off the tents of Jacob, any descendants of the man who does this, who brings an offering to the Lord of hosts. And the second thing you do, you cover the Lord's altar with tears, with weeping and groaning, because he no longer regards the offering or accepts it with favor from your hand. But you say, why does he not? Because the Lord was witness between you and the wife of your youth, to whom you have been faithless. Though she is your companion and your wife by covenant, did he not make them one with a portion of the Spirit in their union? And what was the one God seeking? Godly offspring. So guard yourselves in your spirit, and let none of you be faithless to your wife of your youth. For the man who does not love his wife, but divorces her, says the Lord, the God of Israel, covers his garment with violence, says the Lord of hosts. So guard yourself in your spirit, and do not be faithless. That's our passage today.
It's only 6 verses. It felt longer.
It feels really long, yeah.
You know what? Break it down.
The very beginning, verse 10, Malachi starts with we. Why are we faithless towards one another? So he doesn't just, he's not like correcting and reproving people as if he's like on an ivory tower, right? Saying like, you are bad. But he's saying we, the royal we, like we are in this together. Like we are all being disciplined by God because we are faithless towards one another. And what does that mean? So first they walk away from the covenant of God. They no longer worship right. They no longer even see the love of God in their life. And it plays out in their relationships to one another. They're faithless towards even one another, right? The cross of Christ reconciles the sinner to a holy God, but also reconciles the sinner to others, to each other. Mm-hmm. And so when you walk away from God, it plays out in being faithless towards our brothers and sisters.
From a bigger perspective, like they were in bondage for
70 years.
Slaves. Like, we conquer you, now you're my slave, we're going to take you to our country. Yeah. So they had to, like, leave their land, and they were up there 70 years. So prior to that, there were prophets who were like, turn back to God, or it's going to get bad.
Yeah, something is going to happen.
Right, and then, obviously, it did, and then God redeemed them from that and said, okay, go back home. Yeah. And so they got to come back home, and they're like, but it's not as good as it used to be, and this whole whining business. Like, the concept... what was happening in Israel when they were in bondage? Like, have you ever seen the movie I Am Legend?
Yes.
You know, Will Smith and...
Yeah, so you're picturing Israel, the area of the promised land is just being deserted?
Yes, totally deserted. Like, the nature has taken back over, and maybe that's why they had to rebuild the walls and all that stuff. Like, I don't know if it was truly deserted or not, but secondarily... I kind of went crazy there for a second, sorry. But when they all like return and they're like, this isn't as great as it used to be, and let's complain and whine about it. And I feel like God would be like, I just delivered you. Yeah. Like, you're not in slavery anymore. How can you not give everything? Yeah,
you go back to Egypt, and God rescues them from slavery way before this moment. And in the desert, before they even get to the promised land, they're like, we want to go back.
Yeah.
We want to be slaves.
It was better. At least we had bread.
Yeah, it's. I've used this before. Like, why do we sin? Because we love it.
Yeah.
We love to sin. Why? It's our heart. Our nature is to sin against the God that we love, or that we say we love. And we look at Israel and we can say, like, they're silly. Like, over and over and over again. Like, why aren't they getting it? We can look in the mirror and say the exact same thing, right? Why are we faithless at times in our lives? Like, when I look at the checkbook, especially now with all the prices of everything going up, it's like, where's God like supposed to be blessing me in this moment? Like I need to buy a lottery ticket because I can trust that more than God.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. Well, that coincidentally that just happened.
Yeah.
Like in the past couple of weeks, it was $1
billion.
$2 billion. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
and the only reason it goes to that level is because everybody's like, ooh, I could win, and I'm going to go spend my money and do
I don't need God, but I need $1 billion. That's what we're saying. I mean, essentially, that's what we're saying. I mean, we don't break it down like that. But anyway, this faithlessness plays out in two ways. Just in this passage, we're not going to go real deep. But one, in their marriage, they're faithless in their marriage, but they're also faithless through divorcing their wives haphazardly. This was an issue in Moses' day, an issue in Matthew. Matthew was one of the disciples, but Jesus' day, he was even asked about, what is biblical grounds for divorce? Moses gave certificates so that we can do it right, legally, and Jesus kind of lays it out there. But marriage is important to God. We talked about that a little bit this morning. We don't see that often in our lives. I mean, if you're married in a church, you hear verses, you hear passages about, love is kind, love is, patient, all that good stuff. But we looked at Ephesians chapter 5. Marriage is a picture of Christ and the church, right?
I love how you put that this morning. And you talked about definitely Ephesians and other things. But one thing that I thought about while you were preaching was, marriage was invented by God.
Yeah.
It is His, right?
Oh, yeah. When I said we don't get to redefine it, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And that's what's happened in our society. It's become a legal thing. It's become we can get married for tax purposes.
Yeah, it's a piece of paper now.
It's become like a contract that in the eyes of the government we're going to be married and whatever. And then you follow that road to the nth degree, and you're like, well, who can get married? All that silliness. But when you were preaching this morning and said that, God invented marriage, and when we do it in His design, it's a contract for life that He blesses. That it is, and our marriage. And I wrote this down when you said it this morning. Our marriage is a picture of Christ and the church.
It should be right. That's and we don't think about it like that hardly, right? I would say even as a pastor, I don't think about my marriage as a reflection of Christ and the church 24/7. But I want to go down the road you kind of brought up is two incomes are better than one, right? And so there might be a lot of people that get married because financially there's some security there, right? There's safety there. Say I have, children out of wedlock. Well, I need a dad or I need a mom for these kids, right? That kind of thing. But we don't look at the picture of it being instituted by God, yes, but also it's a picture that God created through the joining of a man and woman of Christ in the church. And so that's kind of where we went with it a little bit. But the second thing is they're doing faithlessly is they're divorcing just willy-nilly. This certificate of divorce that they talk about in Matthew is from Moses. Moses saying, if you want to divorce your wife, you need to give her a certificate, legally releasing her from this marriage. But they were divorcing for silly things. If my wife burnt the toast, I could give her a certificate of divorce and everything would be good, right? That kind of thing. And so they bring it up with Jesus, and Jesus is like, hey, wait, woo. The instance is sexual immorality. And then if you go to 1 Corinthians, Paul says abandonment by an unbeliever. And we're going to unpack that a little bit this evening in our evening service. But the sexual morality, we can all kind of read that clearly, that if there's a husband or a wife who is being sexually immoral outside of the union of that husband and wife relationship, that is a reason. That's a grounds for divorce. Not the Bible never encourages divorce and never even promotes it, but it says there are grounds for divorce, and that's one of them. The second one being abandonment by an unbeliever. So if a believer marries an unbeliever, if that unbeliever just says, you know what, I don't want any more of this God stuff, I don't want any more of this family stuff, and just totally walks away with their financial piece of the puzzle and just leaves them, that's abandonment. That is another grounds that Paul specifically mentions for divorce. The third way that Jesus talks about is death, right? That's the third option, till death do us part.
Well, it's part of, the reason we talk about it and the reason we're looking at it right now and discussing it is not to say, I love how you brought that around this morning, not to say, if you've been through a divorce, you've disappointed God and you should, you've messed up, right? Yes, whatever, get right with God. Yeah. But secondarily, I think a better it's a look forward concept. So when it's like how you said it this morning, if your marriage is on the rocks, that's a quote we use all the time, or a phrase we use, on the rocks. How are we going to turn that around in light of God's mercy and what He's done for us? Or our girls were, up there and they're not ready for marriage yet. They're still, about to finish high school, but that's stuff that needs to be foundational to them. Yeah. Because in our society today, marriage is a kind of a convenience thing, and it just, okay, we're going to get married now because you're super hot and I want to hang with you more often. You're really
more likely than not. That's where it starts. Hey, I like your face, and I think we could do this, right? That kind of thing.
And then your face changes, and you're like, wow, this isn't fun anymore, or it gets hard, and marriage does. You have to work at it, but so many people don't see it as a lifelong commitment. And until we make that clear to our children and to anyone who's going to get married, I know you and I both have performed marriages, and the marriage counseling that goes into that, that's a huge part of it. This is for life. This is, this is a God thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think you have to go back to God instituted it,
right?
And it's for a purpose, right? Now there's you can read into Scripture, even in this passage. He says, why does God, want you to have godly marriages? For godly offspring, right? So that this continues. It's generational. It's not just like, hey, you have a crush on this dude, let's get married, and then see how this thing grows. No, it's like God has brought us together for a reason, for a purpose, right? It's to reflect Christ in the church, but it's also to produce godly children, right?
Yeah.
I'm pointing my children to Christ, right? That kind of thing. It's a huge topic.
Yeah.
And you brought up, I didn't do well with the application piece as far as folks that have already been through the divorce, other than like, hey, that's not your biggest problem is not that you've been through the divorce, right? But we do need to hit here specifically, if you have been divorced for anything outside those reasons we already talked about, unfortunately, that's the cultural norm, right? Mm-hmm. You're not less than in God's sight. You're not you're not piece of trash. You're not less in value to God. If you have breath in your lungs, there is an opportunity for you to turn to Him. Just because you've been divorced doesn't make you any dirtier or any filthier than anybody else, right? Say I've cheated on my taxes, I'm just as guilty, right?
Right.
And so just know that we've all been touched by, or our family's been touched by divorce. There is hope, right? Even for the one who has been divorced wrongly, there is hope in Christ.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. And that's how Malachi starts it. We, right? Yeah. We're all in this together. We're all figuring this thing out. We all need to turn to Christ, God, because we've all the covenant, and obviously he used marriage as an example.
Yeah.
Like God cares about marriage, God cares about divorce. Those are the two things we talked about today. But even in a bigger picture, it's about our relationship with Him.
I mean, if I'm flippant with God, I'm going to be flippant with everything else in my life.
Yep.
That's I didn't say that, but that's the reality. Is if I don't love God the way He calls me to love Him, right? If in every aspect of my life is going to be affected by that, right? Either I follow God or I don't. And so even in my marriage, if I'm not right with Christ, it's going to be really hard for me to lead my family to Christ.
True.
And so, yeah, that's our passage tonight. We're going to kind of go a little bit deeper, not too much probably, and then go to the next section, chapter 3, where really God is starting to say, hey, there's one coming. Like you've been in this waiting period and you're kind of walking away. You're wavering, right? Your faith is wavering in this covenant. He's coming. You just hold on, hold fast kind of thing tonight. So, yeah. Daylight savings time. Am I right?
It's such a smooth transition, Ryan.
Last week was daylight savings. This gets everybody every year, and everybody asks the same question. Do I go forward or backward?
Yeah.
And for me, I don't know if it was just me, like maybe I'm smarter than everybody else that's listening to this, but if it's in the fall and you change your clock, you're falling backwards. You're taking an hour off, right? You're falling behind. So if it's 11 o'clock, I'm going to 10. Spring, I'm springing forward, and I take an hour away from me, so I move the clock up. But we all get confused. I even get confused every year.
Yeah.
Right. But luckily, smartphones, you don't have to think about it at all.
That's right.
It does it for you.
You just it's 2:00 a.m. twice.
But then all your analog clocks are like an hour behind that.
Everything. Yeah. We have this big giant clock on our wall.
Yeah.
That it's like the mechanism that moves the hands is about 4 inches big. And the hands stick way out, point toward these numbers that are just stuck on the wall. It's like kind of like you've seen it.
Yeah.
Did I describe it well?
Sure. So well, on his wall, it's a painted wall. It's a normal wall.
Yeah.
But there are what's the sticker that sticks but it's not sticky? It sticks by
like a fathead thing.
Yeah, but it's I don't know. It's clingy.
Yeah.
It's the word we're going to use, but you've clinged the lines for
the numbers. There was
the
a
minutes.
whole geometric.
And hours has the numbers.
My goodness, it was very complicated to get it up on the wall.
It's very cool.
So to fix it, you just remove that little mechanism where the hands come out of it.
Yeah.
And you just kind of have to wind it. But it's not like crazy precise. This thing points to numbers that
you've created on the wall.
Yeah. Right. So I got up there I had to stand on the couch to get up high enough to do it, and I was trying to figure it and then line it back up, and no one was home. I'm grateful for that because it was very not graceful when I had to, when you have to wind those clocks and hang it and fall, and it was kind of embarrassing. But no one was there. Regardless, your point, like the stove, the microwave, you have to change all those. Mine aren't smart microwaves. I guess they have those.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they do.
Ours is smart. You have a smart refrigerator?
It's smart in the sense, like if you tap one door,
that's what I thought.
It lights up and you can see what's inside of it.
That's so cool to me.
But I don't think there's a clock. Now that I'm thinking about it, our clock's on the oven and the microwave.
You don't waste. I tell you what, Ryan, and this, my mom listens. So mom, I do this. They make fun of me. Like I can walk into my mom's house and be like, "Yo, mom, what up?" And the first thing I do is go to the refrigerator.
Yeah. Does she have a smart
She doesn't, but I need to buy her one because I can't tell you the amount of electricity that I waste. I'm not
just
even hungry.
Opening the door.
It's just like Pavlov's dog. When I go to mom's, I have to go check out her refrigerator.
Yeah, I mean that's a good thing to do. Anyway,
I need the tap so I can just see what's inside.
But I say that so it's only like there's two doors on that one side. You can open the door just to what you can see in that little window.
Yeah,
and that's like milk and tea usually.
Okay.
Or Gatorade, but then you open the bigger door and you get into the refrigerator. Right.
So can you see behind the milk and the tea?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's translucent. Translucent. It's transparent. There's nothing there. It's like it's open. You can stick your hand through there if you want to, but you have to open up one.
Oh,
get to that front.
They have them. That's
and then open up the whole thing.
It's like Star Trek. Like
you could do
tap
the whole
on
thing.
the window and the whole thing goes.
Yeah, we
clear.
I think ours is like on the very first part of that futuristic or fridge thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
But your clock doesn't change itself.
Yeah, the clock. There's no clock on the refrigerator.
Oh. Oh yeah. I'm thinking of appliances with clocks.
Yeah, there is a clock.
No clocks on the refrigerator.
There's a thing in the House or the Senate. I don't know which one's which, where folks are trying to stop daylight savings. They do away with it. I did some Googling. I think the goal of this little site, this is sleepfoundation.org. I can neither endorse or make you not go to that website. Right. But it says, as of now, daylight saving time 2023 is set to start March 12th, 2023, with efforts to make it permanent, stalling in the House. So they want to start it next year, March 12th, and that's it.
Not fall back.
Yeah. And just
only spring forward and keep it.
Either we're going to spring forward then and keep it.
Yeah.
Or we're not changing it and keep it. But it's stalled. I don't think we're ever going to vote for that. Because I think that's agriculture, right? That has something to do with.
I think it has to do with agriculture.
Yeah, like the big farm corporations are not going to. They're not going to adjust to that. They need the day. There
are places that don't observe daylight savings time.
I wish we didn't.
Right. So like I used to live in Indiana, and there are portions of Indiana that half the year you're on Central Time Zone and half the year you're on Eastern Time Zone because they just stay the same, and everybody else changes that hour.
Yeah.
So they just are consistent. But, when you're watching your shows on TV and you're like, hey, it comes on at 7. Well, is that Central or Eastern? Because we don't ever change.
This is
a thing.
It's really, that's a thing. Seasons.
It only bothers me for about 3 or 4 days.
I don't really care.
You don't?
Like, especially for the fallback. Like, when I know I'm going to gain an extra hour of sleep, I get in bed earlier.
Yeah.
Some people wait. They're like, I can stay up longer, right? Yeah. But then you don't feel it. But I go to bed like a couple hours earlier. So I'm like, hey, I'm well rested and ready to go. True. Spring is a different story, though.
Yes.
Because I usually stay up till midnight-ish, reading or doing preparation for other things. And then I know, like, oh no, I'm going to lose. It's 1 o'clock. I need to go to sleep, and then I can't sleep at all.
Right. Yeah. The only thing that I don't necessarily like when we fall back like we are right now is it gets dark so early. Yeah. It's like 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Sunset,
Braden, my son, he's like, Dad, it's like 6 o'clock, and looks like it's midnight.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, that's just kind of the way it goes. Seasons change.
Seasons do change. Yeah. Yes. So here is an argument that is happening in my school currently.
Wait, an argument sounds. It's fairly rough.
This is to take a side. This is not
Hatfield and McCoy's kind of.
No, it's just you're going to make a stand. You're going to take a stand. You are going to when I lay this out.
I am ready to take a stand.
There are people in my school who say, Ryan, the seasons move from Halloween/fall straight into Christmas.
Oh, they skip Thanksgiving.
They skip Thanksgiving, and the counter argument is, whoa. We got Thanksgiving in the middle there, and Thanksgiving doesn't get its fair shake. And I mean, just go to Lowe's right now. Yeah. They got all their Christmas stuff up. Nobody decorates for Thanksgiving. It's kind of, And so these ladies that I work with, they make the argument of, well, that day is about food. Thanksgiving is about food, right? Fall, you can celebrate fall because the leaves change and it feels nice, and it's Halloween's
some people say autumn,
kind of stuff. Autumn, whatever. But as soon as as soon as Halloween ends, and November begins, that begins the Christmas season.
Okay.
And they're like,
so what am I making? I'm taking a stand.
Yeah. What's your take on that, buddy?
So
are you
talking
Christmassy?
I was going to try to find some music, but I'm going to wait. I think there's something bigger going on with what you just said.
Okay.
Halloween to me seems like it's getting bigger and bigger.
Yes.
More people celebrate Halloween in our society than do the traditional Thanksgiving. What is the traditional Thanksgiving? It represents pilgrims and Indians and all kinds of colonialism.
Right.
Our society is moving away from that type of history.
True.
I would say, I think the younger you are, the less likely you are to understand and appreciate Thanksgiving. Now, not saying anything negative about those people, but I'm saying the further you are away from history, Thanksgiving may seem like just another day to eat.
Yep.
And Halloween's like, it's candy. Like, everybody loves Halloween. Like, who doesn't love Halloween, right? I think the older you are, you're going to focus more on Thanksgiving than you are on Halloween. I think.
I like that.
I think that's cultural, but me personally, I don't celebrate Halloween like most folks celebrate Halloween. I think Thanksgiving is a time of Thanksgiving. I don't like the skip of Halloween straight into Christmas. So I guess the stand that I'm taking is I stand that you observe Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're asking. I'm not really sure what you're asking.
I know.
I probably went more deeper than what you wanted to. But,
well, here's the deal. Nobody's saying we should just skip Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody likes turkey and everybody likes...
But there's more emphasis on Halloween and
right,
Christmas.
And it's like decorations and all that kind of stuff. I mean, this prior week, the tree went up in Times Square.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
An 83-year-old tree from Queensbury, New York. Whack. Let's take it down to Times Square. It's crazy tall. It's out there, and like hundreds of people came. Giant crane to put the giant tree up. Like it's Christmas time, baby. It's happening.
I'm not a prophet.
Okay.
I think Thanksgiving will be less and less as we move forward.
Yeah. Cancel culture.
I mean, I think that's the way our society is going, just in general. Or we'll change the name, or we'll change the meaning behind it.
I like the name.
Depressing. That sounds like an old man talking.
Yeah. I like the name. I like the food.
Yeah.
I like the football. I like I like Thanksgiving. I don't know that people like necessarily, like, I don't own a Thanksgiving shirt,
Ooh, yeah.
But I've got Christmas clothes, and, we don't really decorate for Thanksgiving at my home, but we've got Christmas stuff out right now. So I don't know. I hate the idea of canceling. I hate cancel culture.
Yeah,
anyway,
if you're listening to a local church podcast, we have the authority to cancel holidays, and I don't think we're going to cancel Thanksgiving anytime soon.
No way.
Check back in a few years. We'll jump back in on this.
Decide if we want to or
not. No, but I think it's just look at our society. I mean, you have to look at society. Society really doesn't care about our history anymore right now. I mean, really. I mean, it's sad, but we don't. But we love free candy. We love free. I get to dress up, right? I mean, it's just one of those things.
Yep.
But even I hand out candy, but I see October 31st as Reformation Day, not a Halloween day.
True.
But I mean, everybody is going to focus on different things. I like Thanksgiving because families used to get together like big things. Now it's less and less, it seems like. But I still like turkey. I still like,
Yep.
Gobble gobble.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
We just fed a Thanksgiving meal to our widows and widowers.
I'm going to do a hot take real quick, an unpopular hot take. You can take stuffing and throw it out the window.
What?
Yeah, I'm not a stuffing fan. Yeah. I went there.
Like if we go and
I would take cranberry sauce over.
You need to just put some brakes right there, buddy.
I would take cranberry sauce. Yeah, R.C. Sproul just said, "What's wrong with you?" I would take cranberry sauce over stuffing 99.9% of the time.
You can't, like, here's my thing. If in one hand I've got
if I had
cranberry sauce,
if I had to eat a deviled egg, I would eat that over stuffing. And I don't even like deviled eggs.
Look, here's my thing. In one hand, I've got deviled eggs. In my other hand, I've got cranberry. In my other hand, I've got stuffing.
You probably got the banana croquette.
I've got a banana. In my fourth hand, I've got a banana. I've got it all, Ryan. So which hand rises to the top? Put all those hands together, buddy.
That's gross. No. Speaking of put all that together, put all our hands together. Veterans Day was this weekend.
Oh yes.
Most churches, I think a lot of folks recognize veterans. I got to go to your school.
You did. We did an assembly.
Yeah, Pledge of Allegiance. I have a beef to pick with Wright Elementary though. Typically on celebrations of veterans, the songs of each branch are played.
Yes.
And it's
we
awesome.
Played the artillery.
You
song.
did really good. It's the same tune. It was caissons was the word. It was artillery specific.
Yes.
And so we were confused. All the Army guys, we stood up and then we kind of
halfway. Should we stand up or whatever? So
but we appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
It's appreciated. Yeah.
So at my school, we had an assembly where we brought all 500 kids into our space, and we had anybody who was connected to the military at all come and be honored, and they were up on the stage with me. And as you say, we played each branch's. We found a YouTube video that kind of displayed each branch's song, and I was terrified when it was happening because I saw you guys I didn't know this beforehand, but it's tradition that when your branch's song is played, you stand up, and so all the men and women who were in the various branches stood up during their time, which I thought was really, really neat and cool. But the song that we played, as you say, was the artillery specific.
It was the right song, but the wording was for artillery. It was for the artillery.
And so you guys were kind of like, is this ours? Confusing. Should we stand up? What's happening? But while I'm grateful and I thought it was cool that you guys felt honored through that, I really took it as an opportunity to teach. Oh, yeah. And so we had those 500 kids there, and they don't know a lot about Veterans Day, and we taught. I did a nice, what I thought was a nice lesson to teach them about the history of the day and why we do the day and why is it important and why does it matter to me as an 8-year-old, kind of a thing.
You did good. No, it was good. I think I didn't know this in Kentucky. I think it's Kentucky. It may be a federal I guess law. At least in Kentucky, every school has to not recognize or they have to mention Veterans Day to their students. It's a law.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know we had that law, but there is a law that schools have to at least mention it on the day, or at least close to the day that we recognize veterans.
Did you go up to your daughter's school? They didn't do it.
I think it was
at the middle. Your wife's school. Did they
They did one. Too, yeah. It was like at 11. I took Robin to the doctor's office.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so we missed that one. But
they had one too.
They had
I know
choir.
They had a big one. It was 2 hours long.
It was good.
Good.
So that's big.
Yep.
Armistice Day, right? World War I. That's the day, November the 11th.
Yes.
The year was
1918.
1918.
When they signed it.
Yeah.
And the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th
Armistice
month.
Day turned into Veterans Day for later wars. Any other history of the day? Anything else like that? I think that's the big one.
Yeah. It was 1954 when it became after World War II and after Korea. Then they said, you know what? This day should be about all veterans rather than just veterans of the Great War.
Yeah.
The war to end all wars, which
typically I don't like recognition.
Yeah.
But here, as I get older, I get more emotional, I guess. And this year I really enjoyed, being a part of that stuff. So
I had one veteran come up to me afterwards and say, no one's ever thanked me. Yeah. This meant a lot to me. I was like,
a lot of the guys, Vietnam and Korea was like just a small little conflict right there or the Korean War. It wasn't a small conflict, but it was a tiny time period between Vietnam and then Korea and then the newer wars. But those guys really got, passed over.
Mm-hmm.
But now we've deployed millions of people to, Afghanistan, Iraq, in the last 20 years. It seems like it's a common thing now. So yeah, no, it's good. It's good to recognize.
I think we are disconnected from that. I hate to say this, and I haven't really thought it through much, so I'm not trying to be controversial here, but I think that if you ask the average American, are we at war right now?
Oh yeah, they would say no.
I think they would be like, let me go Google that and find out if we're in the middle of a war right now. Even when you were gone and you deployed, like, I don't know that most people, it's so far from my everyday existence. Like, yeah, they're doing something over there, and blah, blah, blah. And that's a blessing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying by any stretch do we want a war on our soil. But, but it's a shame that we're not more cognizant of the sacrifice that so many millions of people that you say are actually currently making.
Unfortunately, it's not popular anymore.
Right.
It's not a moneymaker. It's not a media, frenzy type thing. But there are tons of soldiers, I don't know the exact number, that are deployed right now in countries that we don't even know the names of, and they're defending freedom for those that are oppressed and around the world. So you can Google it, and there's a map. You can look up, the Army. There you can Google probably, deployment or currently deployed soldiers, airmen, seamen, all that kind of stuff. And you'll see a big map of not everywhere, but the bigger major ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but there are some that we don't even know about. But how does all this tie into our context, local church, right? So Malachi, daylight savings, seasons, Veterans Day.
It's gonna be hard to pull all this together.
How does this all connect to the local church? If you're in Shelby County, Spencer County, Anderson County, you don't have a local church. Mount Moriah Baptist Church, we're kind of in the middle of all those counties. We can pull from all those counties. We have folks that come
the corners
from each of those. Check us out, www.mmbcky.org for more info. And we'd love to be able to, you can do a little contact thing on the website. We'll answer any questions that you have. But I would say that every one of these topics that we talked about are real.
Absolutely.
I would say every one of these affect us at a local church level. How? Well, marriage is important, right? We have to, the seasons, daylight saving times, veterans, all that stuff. But if our foundation isn't Scripture, right? If our foundation isn't Christ, we're going to have different, I don't know. There's going to be different ways to view these things.
Mm-hmm.
But if the umbrella that I live my life is Christ, right? If he is the central focus of my life, that when I get to talk about marriage or seasons or Veterans Day, all that kind of stuff, I can see that my role as a breathing human being that represents Christ on this earth is that I can interject Christ in any one of these conversations, right?
Absolutely.
That no matter what we go through, no matter the seasons that we go through, I can share the good news. I can share Christ, the hope that I have, with whatever's going on. I mean, the news of the day, I think somebody brought up, a Veterans Day celebration, 2 airplanes crashed into each other.
Wow.
Right?
Texas, yeah.
Horrible thing. But I can interject that, there is hope.
Yep.
Even when we go through things of like such tragedy. But yeah.
My lens, Ryan, for the local church podcast is, yes, one, if you're within our geographic range, come on over and, don't forsake the assembly. Let's get together. Let's join the family. Let's come on. But there could be people in, whatever, Arizona that are listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
And so my lens through this idea of a local church is to encourage people to plug in to a local church wherever it happens to be. And I'll tell you my overarching, like, this is a life lesson that I've learned. When I was a younger man and I thought I need to make a difference, right? I need to have my purpose in life. It was so grandiose. It was, I need to change the world in some capacity. You got to be the president of the United States in order to get that kind of thing done. Like, humongous, world-changing, like, totally unrealistic. But that was my vision. And as I aged and I realized I'm not going to do that, I kind of went through this, like, crisis kind of a thing, like, hey, am I not fulfilling my purpose or whatever, until I realized that my calling is not necessarily to change the world. My calling is to change my world. And so wherever I am, like, and whatever it is that we talk about or that we do is centered for me back into, what is my foundation? What is my local church that I'm plugging into and I'm surrounding my world with? And that's my world, right? That I feel like I need to plug in, to be engaged, to talk about, to understand. in order to fulfill my purpose.
Yeah.
And every day my world gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And obviously we're on a podcast that's literally worldwide right now. Yeah. So that's a good thing. That's just, expanding my reach and my opportunities. But I have to have, like you said, you have to have that foundation. You have to have, and we encourage you to find a local church, right? That's got to be where you get your fuel.
Yeah. I like the way you brought that into if you're not connected, right?
Right.
So this is called a local church podcast because we are a part of a local church here. But the local church is global. It's not just where I am anymore, right? We can connect across social media. We can connect across all kinds of different medias. And as we kind of close this episode out, I think in the future, as we begin to kind of talk through these topics, no matter what we talk about, it's tied to the local church. Like the things that we talk about matter. It may not sound like it matters at the time, but everybody goes through all these things that we talk about. We're just two normal dudes that are just talking.
Except you're smarter than.
I doubt it. But two dudes just talking about the everyday things connected to a church, right? I mean, if we say this a lot in our congregation, I don't know how people make it through the day without a local church, without a people that care about me.
Right.
Like, so like when I know that I'm going down a wrong road, if I don't have somebody to help bring me back, like to wake me up, like I'm in trouble.
Right.
Right. And so, yeah. Same
thing. Like we just did the Widows and Widowers luncheon next door, in our fellowship hall. It was, if you go through something as traumatic as losing a spouse, and you don't have somebody to wrap their arms around you and say, hey, we do love you. What are we just fighting this fight for?
Yeah. Love God.
Love people.
Make disciples.